The stars in the vast expanse of space twinkled, silent witnesses to the beginning of an extraordinary moment. Deep in the black void, a strange object appeared, unlike anything the aliens had ever encountered before. At first, it was nothing more than a flicker on their long-range sensors, a distant, barely visible blip against the backdrop of distant suns. But as it grew closer, its presence became undeniable. It was large, far larger than anything they had seen in centuries. The alien fleet, which had long ruled this corner of the galaxy, was not unfamiliar with powerful ships. They had encountered many other species, each with its own unique technology, each more advanced than the last. But this was different. The object approaching them was unlike anything they had ever seen. The ships of the various alien species they had encountered had always followed certain designs, certain principles. But this one was a mystery. The size, the shape, the energy it emitted, it didn't belong to any species they knew. A series of bright pulses lit up the dark sky as the massive ship grew closer. The alien fleet, which had been preparing for a routine patrol, suddenly found itself gripped by a growing unease. They had seen unknown ships before, but nothing that could match the sheer power emanating from this one. No one on board their ships knew what to make of it. They had never seen anything like this human warship, and they couldn't understand it. Inside the command center of the alien flagship, the crew of experienced officers stood frozen in disbelief. They had faced many challenges, fought many battles, but they had never faced anything like this. The ship before them was a marvel of advanced technology, unlike anything they had seen in their centuries of exploration. Its dark hull was sleek and menacing, with sharp angles that seemed to reflect the surrounding stars in strange ways. The alien crew members quickly began analyzing the data, sending signals to their homeworld for more information. "What is it?" The voice of the lead officer, Commander Walter, echoed through the tense room. His deep voice trembled ever so slightly with the hint of uncertainty. He had seen many alien ships, but this one was beyond comprehension. The officer at the sensors panel, Tarek, struggled to keep his cool. His fingers danced across the controls as he tried to get a clearer picture of what was happening. "It's unlike anything we've ever encountered," Tarek reported. "The readings, nothing matches. We can't even tell what kind of energy source it's using. It's like nothing we've seen before." The commander stared at the image of the ship on the massive display screen. Its design was sharp, almost angular, with glowing lines of energy tracing the edges of its body. The dark, smooth surface of the ship was clearly built for both function and intimidation. It was like a shadow, sleek and dangerous, moving through space at a speed that seemed almost unnatural. It wasn't just the design of the ship that left the aliens puzzled. It was the power it radiated. The energy readings were off the charts. The ship was drawing from an unknown energy source, far more powerful than any ship they had ever encountered. "Send a communication," Walter ordered, his voice sharp now. "Let's see if we can make contact. We need to understand what we're dealing with." The communication officer, Zira, quickly inputted the necessary codes to transmit a message across the vast expanse of space. The signal would take some time to reach the ship, but they had no choice. The tension was unbearable. Every alien on the fleet was now watching the slow, almost predatory movement of the ship. As the signal was sent, a strange silence filled the command room. No one moved. Everyone waited. The ship continued to draw closer, its vast form growing larger on the screen. And still, there was no response from the human warship. "There's no reply," Zira said, her voice filled with confusion and concern. "No response at all. It's as if they can't hear us, or worse, as if they're ignoring us." Walter felt a chill run down his spine. This wasn't normal. Most species, when encountering a new alien ship, would either attempt to communicate or at least acknowledge the presence of another. The silence of this warship was unsettling. It was as if the human ship didn't care about them at all, or worse, didn't even recognize their existence. The alien fleet hovered, watching in awe as the mysterious ship continued to approach. As the warship finally came into full view, the enormity of its size became more apparent. It was a colossal vessel, vast, dark, and sleek, hovering just outside the range of the alien fleet. Its surface shimmered with strange energy fields, and its weapons systems seemed to be dormant yet powerful. It was both beautiful and terrifying at the same time. "It's not responding," the officer, Tarek, muttered under his breath. His hand shook as he continued to monitor the ship. What is it doing? The human warship drifted slowly into view, and it was clear now that it was not slowing down. The sheer mass of the vessel was enough to make the smaller alien ships seem insignificant in comparison. The way it moved was almost mechanical, precise, but purposeful. It had no fear. It was a predator moving through space, and the alien fleet was nothing more than prey. The ships of the alien fleet instinctively positioned themselves in formation, their weapons primed and ready. But even with their vast arsenal of weapons, none of the fleet's officers felt confident about their chances. The energy radiating from the human ship was enough to make the very air inside their ships crackle with electricity. The unknown nature of the warship left the entire alien fleet on edge. Was this just a scouting ship, a probe, or was this a fully armed, battle-ready warship? The answer came in the form of a single powerful blast. Without warning, the human warship released a burst of energy. A beam of concentrated power shot from the front of the ship, cutting through space like a blade. It was so fast and powerful that the aliens didn't have time to react. The beam struck one of their smaller ships with such force that it disintegrated on contact, leaving nothing behind but a cloud of dust and debris. It was over in an instant. Did you see that?" Zira whispered in disbelief. The alien crew was paralyzed in shock. For centuries, they had been the dominant power in the galaxy, but this was something else entirely. The humans had just demonstrated power far beyond anything they had imagined. Commander Walter stared at the screen, his face pale. "They've made their intentions clear," he said quietly. "We are dealing with a species far more advanced than we ever thought. They have no fear. They will destroy us if they choose to." The alien fleet began to maneuver, trying to figure out what to do next. They were not a race known for retreat, but the raw power they had just witnessed made them rethink everything. How could they fight something so powerful? How could they defeat a species capable of destroying their ships in the blink of an eye? In the midst of their confusion and fear, the humans on the warship remained silent. The ship was like a black void in the vast expanse of space, powerful and deadly. No words came from it. There was no sign of life. It simply existed, an unstoppable force. The aliens could only watch, helpless and afraid, as the human warship drifted closer. For the first time in centuries, the alien fleet wasn't sure what to do. They had encountered many species before, but none had ever left them this afraid. The humans had made their first move in this encounter, and it was clear. They were not to be underestimated. The silence stretched on, broken only by the hum of the alien ship's engines, the distant sound of tread. The alien fleet, now in a state of complete unease, hovered in the cold vastness of space, their eyes fixed on the human warship. No one spoke. The entire command room in the alien flagship was silent, save for the hum of machinery and the occasional beep from the consoles. Everyone was still processing what had just happened. The destruction of their ship had been sudden, brutal, and without warning. It was unlike anything they had ever experienced before. Commander Walter stood motionless, his eyes locked on the screen, unable to tear his gaze away from the massive human warship. His mind raced, trying to make sense of what he had just witnessed. A ship capable of obliterating one of their fleet's vessels in the blink of an eye. It didn't make sense. How could a species so new, so unfamiliar, possess such destructive power? "What are we dealing with?" Walter muttered under his breath. He had fought battles against countless species, each with their own strengths, weaknesses, and tactics. But the humans were different. They were an enigma, an unknown force that had just shaken the foundation of everything the aliens thought they knew about the galaxy. The alien officers around him shifted uneasily in their seats, their eyes nervously darting between the screens showing the human ship's trajectory. Tarek, the officer in charge of the sensors, worked frantically to gather more data. His hands moved quickly over the controls, trying to obtain more information on the ship's capabilities. "It doesn't make sense, Commander," Tarek said, his voice laced with both awe and fear. "The energy readings are beyond anything we've ever recorded. The power it's using, it's unlike anything in the galaxy." Walter turned toward Tarek. "Explain," he said sharply, his voice full of tension. Tarek hesitated for a moment, then began speaking in a low, hesitant tone. "It's using an energy source that we've never encountered before. The readings are all over the place, some kind of power we can't even begin to understand. It's unpredictable." He paused and looked up at the screen, his brow furrowing with confusion. "There's no known civilization that could create such an advanced ship." Walter narrowed his eyes, frustration growing. "So what you're telling me is that we have no idea what we're dealing with?" "Exactly," Tarek replied. "We can't even find any trace of the technology they're using. It's not just their weapons, their shields, their propulsion system. Everything is beyond us." The tension in the room grew thicker as the realization began to set in. Humanity, a species that had never before made contact with the alien fleet, had just revealed a technological leap so great that it threatened the very balance of power in the galaxy. Walter walked toward the large window that overlooked the expanse of space. The human warship was still there, drifting silently in the void. It was beautiful in its own terrifying way, sleek, dark, and unnaturally perfect. The more he observed it, the more he began to realize that its design wasn't just advanced. It was alien to their understanding of what was possible. Even in the stillness of space, its sheer presence commanded attention. Walter's mind raced. He had faced hostile species before, each with their own advanced weaponry and ships. But this was different. Every time they thought they understood it, the human warship revealed something new that broke their expectations. There was no predictable pattern, no way to gauge what the humans could do next. It was as if they were playing a game with the very laws of physics. "We need to find out more about them." Commander Zira, the communication officer, spoke up. She had been quietly analyzing the warship, trying to find some way to contact it again. But she, too, was becoming frustrated with the lack of response. Walter nodded. "Keep trying. But we need more than just communication. We need to understand what they're capable of. If we don't, this could end badly for us." The next few minutes passed in tense silence as the alien fleet scrambled to make sense of the mysterious warship. The human ship showed no signs of communication, no intention of engagement. It was simply there, hovering like a predator in the dark, waiting for something. The aliens had sent out multiple attempts to reach out, but each attempt had been met with silence. It was as if the humans didn't care to speak, or worse, didn't feel the need to explain themselves at all. Inside the alien flagship, the officers were growing desperate. There was one thing they knew for sure. This human ship was not here to negotiate. It was here to send a message. "We can't just wait here forever," Commander Walter muttered, rubbing his temples as the weight of the situation pressed down on him. "If we don't act, we'll be seen as weak." "Sir," Tarek said, looking back at the sensor panel with a sense of urgency, "there's a new reading. The human warship, it's powering up. It's not just the weapons. There's a massive energy surge coming from the core of the ship. Something big is about to happen." Walter's eyes widened. "What are they doing?" he demanded, his voice sharp. Before Tarek could respond, the alien fleet was hit with a jolt. A sudden blast of energy surged through space, sending a shockwave across the void. It was unlike anything the alien ships had ever felt. The energy wasn't just raw power, it was precision, calculated, controlled. The human ship was harnessing the energy in a way that no one had ever seen before. "Commander, they're targeting us." Zira gasped, her eyes fixed on the screen. "The energy readings, they're locking onto our ships." In an instant, the alien fleet began to move. The ships scattered, trying to evade the incoming attack, but it was too late. A bright beam of energy shot from the human warship, slicing through the emptiness of space at an impossible speed. It was unlike any weapon the aliens had ever faced. The beam struck one of the alien ships with a deafening crack, a massive explosion of energy that rocked the very core of the alien vessel. The ship that was struck seemed to disintegrate almost instantly, its form shattered into pieces as the blast tore it apart. No debris remained. The ship was simply gone, as if it had never existed. The aliens stood in stunned silence. They had never seen such an attack, so powerful, so swift, and so precise. The destruction had been complete. "That's impossible," Tarek whispered. "That kind of firepower, nothing in our arsenal comes close." Walter's face was pale, his mind reeling with the realization that they were outmatched. There was no way to fight something that could destroy their ships in a single shot. The human warship was not just advanced, it was untouchable. Their technology, their weapons, everything they knew about warfare seemed insignificant in the face of this new threat. "We need to rethink our strategy," Walter said quietly, though the words tasted bitter on his tongue. "This isn't a battle we can win with brute force. We need to learn from them, understand how they've mastered this technology. If we don't, the entire galaxy may be at risk." The human warship, silent and ominous, remained in the distance. It had made its first move, and the message was clear. Humanity was not here to be ignored. They had come to dominate, to show that they were not just a species to be overlooked. They were here to stay, and the galaxy would have to reckon with them. As the alien fleet regrouped, the fear was palpable. Humanity had just shown them a glimpse of their power, and it was more than the aliens had ever imagined. As the alien fleet staggered from the shock of their first encounter with the human warship, there was an unspoken understanding among the officers. The game had changed. The galaxy, which had long been ruled by the alien races, was now faced with an unprecedented force, one that they knew very little about. The human warship had shown them its power, and the alien ships had barely managed to escape with their lives. But what terrified them the most was the fact that they still didn't know who or what was inside that ship. The silence in the command room of the alien flagship was deafening. The officers exchanged uneasy glances, their minds racing with questions. What kind of beings were the humans? What could possibly drive them to develop such powerful technology? More importantly, why had they come here? Commander Walter stood near the large viewing window, staring at the human warship in the distance. His mind was still processing the attack, the sheer force of it. He had never seen anything like it. The human ship wasn't just a weapon. It was an entire military machine, a force of nature in its own right. And yet it was silent, waiting, as if daring them to make the next move. "Commander, we've received a transmission." Zira, the communication officer, spoke up, breaking the tense silence. Walter turned quickly. The sudden news was both a relief and a new source of dread. Perhaps this transmission was a sign that the humans wanted to talk, to explain themselves, but a part of him feared what they might say. "What did they send?" Walter asked, his voice steady despite the anxiety gnawing at him. Zira activated the screen, and the room fell into quiet anticipation. The transmission flickered for a moment before stabilizing. On the screen, a human appeared. His face was calm, his expression unreadable. He was sitting behind a control panel, wearing a dark uniform. His posture was confident, almost arrogant. The alien studied the human with caution. His eyes were calm, but there was a fire in them, an intensity that both unsettled and intrigued the alien officers. He didn't appear to be particularly extraordinary in any way. He looked human, but the way he carried himself, the look of unshakable resolve in his eyes, made the aliens wonder, Was this the face of a single individual, or the face of a species capable of destroying entire fleets? "I am Captain Ethan Shaw of the human warship Vanguard." The voice came across the speakers, clear and commanding, without any hesitation. It was a voice that carried authority, and the alien officers found themselves listening more closely than they intended. "You've just had a small taste of what humanity can do. We are not here to negotiate. We are here to claim what is rightfully ours." There was a brief pause, and Walter could see the human captain's eyes shift slightly, as though he was taking his time with his next words. The aliens held their breath. "I know this is sudden," Captain Shaw continued, his voice unwavering, "and you're probably confused. But we are not the weak species you might have thought. We have come to make our mark on this galaxy, and we're not interested in your petty politics. This is just the beginning. Your ships, your weapons, your tactics, they're all obsolete now. You'll have to decide whether you want to coexist with us or be swept aside. The choice is yours." The alien officers watched in stunned silence. The words rang in their ears, but it wasn't just the message that struck them. It was the confidence in the human captain's voice. There was no fear, no hesitation, no plea for peace, just a cold, unyielding declaration of strength. It was as though the humans knew something the aliens didn't. And the more the aliens listened, the more it became clear. Humanity was not here to ask for anything. They were here to take what they wanted, and they weren't afraid to destroy anyone who stood in their way. Commander Walter took a step forward, his eyes narrowing. He had heard threats before, countless times from other species, but something about this felt different. The humans had not only displayed unimaginable power, but now they were speaking with such authority that it left the aliens questioning their position in the galaxy. Zira remained silent, her eyes fixed on the screen. Tarek, who had been monitoring the transmission, spoke up in a quiet voice. This isn't just a declaration of war. It's a statement. They know exactly what they're doing." Walter nodded slowly. The human captain was sending a clear message. Humanity was not afraid to challenge the status quo. They had arrived, and they would not back down. Their technology, their power, their resolve, they had just demonstrated a level of control the galaxy had never seen. It was as if they had no intention of playing by the rules anymore. "Sir, we have a new reading," Tarek interrupted, his voice tense. "There's another energy surge from the human ship. It's bigger than the last one. Whatever they're doing, it's escalating." Walter's heart skipped a beat. "What now?" he muttered under his breath, his gaze darting to the screen. The human warship was still there, silent as ever, but the growing power behind it was undeniable. He could feel the tension building. "Captain Shaw," Zira said, her voice rising slightly as she activated the comm system. "What are you doing? What is that energy surge?" The human captain didn't hesitate in his reply. "We're preparing for the next phase of our mission. The warship you're seeing is just the beginning. It's only a matter of time before we take full control of this sector." Walter clenched his fists. This wasn't just a military threat. The humans were out for something bigger, something more dangerous. It was as if they were declaring their dominance, not just over one fleet or one battle, but over the entire galaxy. And yet, despite the overwhelming sense of fear and powerlessness, Commander Walter couldn't help but feel a strange sense of admiration for the humans. They were unlike any species the galaxy had ever encountered. Their resolve was unwavering, and their strength seemed boundless. They had no hesitation, no fear of the unknown. They were relentless. "Is there any way we can stop them, Commander?" Zira asked, breaking the silence. Walter looked back at the screen, his mind working furiously. The warship's energy readings were growing stronger, and the human captain's words rang in his ears. The galaxy was about to change, and whether the alien fleet liked it or not, humanity was going to be at the center of it. The transmission ended, and the screen went black, leaving the alien officers in a stunned silence. Commander Walter turned toward his crew, his face a mixture of determination and uncertainty. "Prepare the fleet," he said, his voice steady. "We're not backing down. If humanity wants a fight, we'll give it to them. But we need to understand their ship, its technology, its weaknesses. We need to know everything about them. This war is just beginning, and we need to be ready." The alien officers nodded, their eyes filled with resolve. The war had just begun, and they had no idea how it would end. But one thing was certain: humanity was not going to be easy to defeat. The human crew had made their presence known, and now the galaxy would have to adjust to the new force on the block: humanity. The alien fleet was on edge as Commander Walter paced the command deck of their flagship. The room was quiet, the tension palpable. Every officer was watching him, waiting for his orders. What they had just witnessed was unlike anything they had encountered in all their years of warfare. They had learned that the human warship wasn't just an advanced vessel, but a symbol of the humans themselves, a species with the courage and ability to challenge the galaxy's established powers. It was a terrifying thought. The transmission from Captain Shaw still echoed in Walter's mind. "We are here to claim what is rightfully ours." There was no mistaking it. The humans were not here for negotiations, nor were they interested in playing by the rules. They were here for war, and they had shown that they had the firepower to back it up. Walter's crew had barely escaped the destruction of their own ship, and now the question on everyone's mind was, what would the humans do next? "Sir, we're receiving another transmission from the human warship." Zira's voice cut through the silence. She sounded concerned, her fingers flying over the console as she worked to establish communication. "Put it through," Walter ordered, his voice steady despite the rising uncertainty inside him. The screen flickered to life, and Captain Ethan Shaw's face appeared once more. He was standing now, his uniform neatly pressed, and his eyes held the same cold confidence as before. This time, there was no message of peace, no offer of compromise. He spoke simply, with chilling clarity. "You've had your warning, Commander. We're not here to talk. We're here to win." The transmission ended abruptly. Walter stared at the blank screen, his hands gripping the edge of the command table as he took in Shaw's words. There was no diplomatic solution to this. The humans were here, and they were not going to stop until they had achieved their goal. "Sir, it's happening again." Tarek, the sensor officer, called out. His voice was tight with fear. "The human warship is charging its weapons. Their power surge is off the charts." Walter's eyes narrowed. He knew what that meant. The humans were about to make their move, and this time, they wouldn't be holding back. The first attack had been a warning, a demonstration of their power. But now, they were ready to strike. "Divert all power to shields," Walter barked. "We need to be ready. All ships, prepare for evasive maneuvers." Within moments, the alien fleet was in motion, their ships shifting into defensive positions as they activated their energy shields. The flagship's engines roared to life, and the fleet began to scatter, hoping to evade the incoming assault. They knew they had no chance of surviving another direct hit from the human warship. On the bridge, there was a sense of urgency that hadn't been there before. The alien officers could feel the weight of the decision hanging over them. This wasn't just a battle for survival anymore. It was a battle for the future of their species. If they didn't act quickly, if they didn't find a way to counter the human warship's devastating power, they could lose everything. "We can't let them destroy us like this," Zira said, her voice shaking slightly. "We need a plan, and we need it now." Walter turned toward her, his face grim. "I know. We're not backing down. Get me everything we have on their technology. Find a weakness. Anything." Zira nodded, her fingers flying over the controls as she accessed the database of the human ship's previous encounters. Tarek joined her, analyzing the data alongside her. The room was filled with a sense of desperation, as every officer worked in overdrive to gather any scrap of information that could help them survive. But despite their efforts, the gap in knowledge between the two species seemed insurmountable. The humans were operating with technology that the aliens couldn't even begin to comprehend. Every attempt to analyze the human ship's energy output, weapon systems, and propulsion was met with failure. Nothing matched the readings they were getting. It was as if the humans had tapped into some unknown source of power that defied all known laws of physics. And then, without warning, the human warship struck. A burst of light erupted from the distance, bright enough to momentarily blind the alien fleet's sensors. The beam shot across the darkness of space with pinpoint precision, and the first alien ship was engulfed in an explosion so intense that it consumed the vessel in a single instant. There was no time to react, no warning. The ship simply vanished, its debris scattered across the void. The alien fleet scattered, but the humans were already tracking their every move. It didn't matter how fast they flew or how many evasive maneuvers they performed. The human warship was everywhere. It was as though the humans could see them all, no matter how much distance they put between themselves and the attack. Another ship destroyed, Commander, Tarek reported grimly. We've lost contact with the third ship in the fleet. It's gone. Walter clenched his fists. The attack was not only devastating, it was personal. The humans were picking them off one by one, as though they were hunting down their prey. Each blast wasn't just a strike against their ships. It was a warning, a demonstration of power that the aliens could not afford to ignore. "We're losing, Commander," Zira said, her voice cracking. "We can't win against this. We don't have the firepower to stop them, asterisk asterisk." Walter's mind raced. He had faced wars, battles, and enemies that seemed unbeatable. But this was something different. Humanity was not just fighting for survival. They were fighting to dominate, to reshape the galaxy in their image. And they were doing it with an unmatched ferocity. "There must be something we can do," Walter muttered to himself. "There has to be a weakness, something we're missing." Then, suddenly, the answer hit him. The human warship's attacks were precise, calculated. They didn't waste energy. They didn't overextend their reach. Their weapon was focused, powerful, and relentless. But they weren't just hitting random targets. They were targeting the most vulnerable ships first. The weaker points, the ships that couldn't defend themselves as effectively. "It's a strategy," Walter said aloud, his eyes lighting up with realization. "They're targeting our weak points. We need to regroup and reinforce our defenses. If we can survive this first wave, we might have a chance." The tension on the bridge was thick, but Walter's words gave the officers a renewed sense of purpose. It wasn't over yet. If they could adapt quickly, they might be able to turn the tide of the battle. But the clock was ticking. The next strike from the human warship would come soon, and they had to be ready. The fleet began to adjust its formation, aligning the stronger ships to the front and fortifying their shields. The alien officers worked in overdrive, using every scrap of information they had gathered to counter the human attacks. They were far from confident, but they had no choice but to try. The next move would decide the fate of the galaxy. And Commander Walter knew that if they didn't make it count, humanity would claim victory, not just in this battle, but in the war for the galaxy's future. The alien fleet was reeling from the human warship's devastating first strike. Several ships had already been destroyed, their remains scattered across the dark void of space. The survivors, struggling to regroup, knew that the odds were stacked against them. Commander Walter's face was etched with determination as he paced back and forth on the command deck, his crew working furiously to adapt to the humans' relentless attacks. "Sir, we've lost contact with 2 more ships," Zira reported, her voice strained. "The humans are systematically destroying us." Walter's grip tightened around the edge of the command table. This was more than just a battle for survival now. This was about preserving everything his species had worked for, everything they had built over centuries. If they lost here, it wouldn't just be a military defeat. It would be the end of everything they knew. "Get me a direct link to the other fleets," Walter ordered. We need to combine forces. We need to stop this before it's too late. The communications officers scrambled to establish the link, their fingers flying over the console. Moments later, a holographic display of the other fleet commanders appeared in front of Walter, each one looking as desperate as he felt. "Commander Walter," one of them said, his voice tight with fear, "we're being hunted. The humans are picking us off one by one. We've tried to change our tactics, but nothing works. We can't stop them." Walter's eyes narrowed. The human warship was not just a technological marvel. It was a masterclass in strategic warfare. The humans didn't just have the power to destroy. They knew exactly when and where to strike to cause maximum damage. But this also meant they were following a pattern, one that could be exploited if they acted quickly. "We need to stop running," Walter said, his voice calm but forceful. "We can't keep fleeing or hiding. The humans are too fast. It's time we turn the tables. We need to fight back." There was a moment of silence as the other commanders considered his words. The idea of standing and fighting when they were so outmatched seemed like madness, but there was no choice left. If they didn't make a stand now, they would be wiped out. "Commander Walter, what do you suggest?" another officer asked, his voice tinged with skepticism. Walter didn't hesitate. "We need to lure the human warship into a trap. We know their tactics now. They strike our weaker ships first. If we create a decoy, one that seems vulnerable, we can bait them into attacking it. Once they do, we hit them with everything we have, every weapon, every ship, all at once. We catch them off guard. We fight on our terms." The officers exchanged uncertain looks. This was a risky plan, but Walter's reputation as a battle commander had earned him their trust. If there was any chance of turning the tide, it was his idea that might just make it happen. "We'll need to use the last of our reserves," Zira said, her fingers flying over the console. "If we're going to stand a chance, we can't afford to hold anything back." "Agreed." Walter turned to face the fleet's commanders. "We fight together, or we die alone. Make your preparations. We have one shot at this." With that, the alien fleet began to reposition. The remaining ships formed a new battle formation, creating a smaller, seemingly vulnerable group in the center of their formation, just as the humans would expect. The decoy was ready. The plan was in motion. Meanwhile, on the human warship Vanguard, Captain Shaw was surveying the carnage. His face was stoic, but behind his calm demeanor, there was a growing sense of curiosity. The alien ships were reacting in ways he didn't expect. They were getting smarter, and that intrigued him. "Captain," one of his officers called out, his voice tense, "we're picking up unusual energy readings. The alien fleet is adjusting its formation. They're setting up a trap." Shaw raised an eyebrow. "A trap? They're finally trying to fight back." "Yes, sir. It looks like they're trying to bait us into attacking a specific formation." Shaw thought for a moment. He knew the aliens were desperate, but this was unexpected. He'd expected them to break apart, to run. But instead, they were attempting to draw him in, to make him think he had the upper hand. It was a clever move, but would it be enough to stop him? "Get me a clear shot at their weakest ship," Shaw ordered. "We'll lure them into the open, and when they make their move, we hit them hard. We'll finish this quickly." The plan was set. The human warship advanced, heading straight for the alien decoy. Shaw watched closely, his fingers drumming on the arm of his chair. It was a dangerous game, but it was one he had played before. The aliens didn't have the stomach for a prolonged fight. They would hesitate, second-guess themselves, and that would be their downfall. But as they drew closer, something felt off. The alien fleet wasn't retreating. They weren't scattering. They were waiting. The hair on the back of Shaw's neck stood on end as the realization hit him. The aliens weren't afraid. They were biding their time. Suddenly, the trap was sprung. The alien fleet erupted from its decoy formation, a barrage of weapons unleashing from all sides. Ships that had once seemed like sitting targets now came to life, their weapons primed and ready. The human warship's shields flickered under the onslaught, but Shaw didn't flinch. He'd been expecting this. Brace for impact. Shaw shouted to his crew. Return fire. All guns, full power. The Vanguard unleashed its full might, its energy weapons cutting through the incoming fire. The human warship moved with deadly precision, dodging and returning fire as it tore through the alien ships. The battle was chaotic, a blur of flashing lights and explosions. But amidst the chaos, Shaw's mind remained sharp. He wasn't just fighting to win. He was fighting to outthink the aliens at every turn. "Sir, we're taking hits, but we're holding steady," an officer reported. "Keep them coming." Shaw responded coolly. "This is the fight we were born for." The two forces clashed in the vast emptiness of space, and for the first time, it was clear that the humans were not just winning. They were reshaping the way war was fought in the galaxy. The alien fleet had underestimated them, and now they were paying the price. As the battle raged on, Commander Walter watched the human warship with a mix of admiration and fury. The humans were resilient, adaptive, and most importantly, they were organized. They didn't fight with fear, they fought with purpose. And in that moment, Walter realized that the only way for the alien fleet to survive was to break their own patterns. They had to outthink the humans. They had to fight smarter, not harder. The battle wasn't over. But the humans had made their mark, and there was no going back. The space between the alien fleet and the human warship Vanguard crackled with energy. It was a battlefield of chaos and destruction, where the fate of entire civilizations hung in the balance. The alien forces had fought back with everything they had, and yet, despite their desperate strategy, the human warship remained an unyielding force, cutting through them with deadly precision. Commander Walter stood tall on the bridge of his flagship, his face a mask of determination and frustration. The situation was grim. His fleet had taken heavy losses, and the remaining ships were scattered, struggling to maintain their cohesion. The humans had outclassed them at every turn. "Status report," Walter demanded, his voice steady, though his mind raced. Zira, his most trusted officer, turned toward him. Her face was pale from the stress of the battle, her hands trembling slightly as she read the data on her console. "We've lost contact with another 2 ships, Commander," she reported. "Our remaining forces are scattered. The humans are systematically picking us off, one by one." Walter clenched his fists, the weight of the moment settling upon him. They had underestimated humanity, thought they could crush them with their superior technology. But it was clear now, the humans were not just a threat to be defeated. They were an unstoppable force, driven by a hunger to prove themselves, to claim their place in the galaxy. "What's our current position?" Walter asked. "We are outnumbered, sir, and the Vanguard is closing in," Zira responded, her voice strained. "They've broken through our defenses at the outer perimeter. If we don't do something soon, we'll be finished." Walter's mind raced. Time was running out. There had to be something he hadn't seen, something he had missed in the chaos of the battle. The Vanguard was strong, but it wasn't invincible, and if they could just find that one flaw, they might still have a chance to turn the tide. But what? "Prepare the fleet for one final maneuver," Walter said, his voice cutting through the tense atmosphere. "We're not retreating. We're going all in. This is our last chance." Zira blinked, startled. "Sir, are you sure? This is a desperate move. We have very little left to fight with." Walter's gaze hardened. "We have nothing to lose. We've already lost most of our ships. We need to push the humans to their limits. Get me the coordinates for the nearest asteroid field. We'll make our stand there." The asteroid field was a dangerous, unpredictable maze of debris. It was a place where even the most advanced ships could be torn apart if they weren't careful. But it was also the one place where the human warship's overwhelming firepower could be neutralized, even if only for a short time. The dense asteroid field could be used to block the Vanguard's line of sight, forcing it to slow down and navigate carefully. It would be their only chance. The alien fleet began to regroup, moving toward the asteroid field at full speed. As they approached, Walter's mind was focused entirely on the task at hand. He knew the odds were slim, but if they could get the Vanguard into the field, they might have a shot. The humans wouldn't be able to take advantage of their superior weapons, and in that moment, the playing field would be leveled. "Sir, the human fleet is closing in on our position," Zira said urgently. "They've detected our movements. They're not going to let us get away." Walter gritted his teeth. The trap was closing in, but they had no choice. "Keep going," he ordered. "We won't outrun them. We need to take them down before they can reach us." The alien ships surged forward, their engines roaring as they accelerated into the asteroid field. The human fleet followed, relentless, but they were cautious. Shaw was no fool. He knew the asteroid field could be a death trap, but he had no intention of letting the aliens escape. "Captain Shaw, we're picking up multiple unknown readings ahead. The asteroid field is dense," one of Shaw's officers warned. "I see it," Shaw replied, his gaze locked onto the view screen. His eyes narrowed as he considered the risk. "If we hesitate, we give them a chance to escape. Prepare the ship. We're going in." The Vanguard surged forward, its enormous hull cutting through space toward the asteroid field. The human warship moved with precision, its sensors scanning ahead, making micro-adjustments to avoid the massive debris that littered the area. But Walter had planned for this. As the alien fleet entered the asteroid field, the remaining ships scattered, using the massive rocks to block the humans' line of sight. Walter's ship was the largest and the most powerful remaining vessel, and he guided it expertly through the maze of asteroids, weaving in and out of the debris at breakneck speed. "All ships, stay close, keep moving," Walter commanded. "Don't let them get a clean shot. If we're going to survive, we have to make them work for every kill." The human warship Vanguard pushed into the field, but it wasn't easy. Shaw's tactical expertise was tested like never before. The asteroid field was a labyrinth, and every time the Vanguard locked onto a target, a massive asteroid would appear, blocking their shot. The human fleet was forced to move carefully, constantly recalibrating their weapons and engines, trying to find the aliens among the floating debris. "We can't let them escape," Shaw muttered to himself, his grip tightening on the armrest. "Bring the forward shields up. Prepare to fire on anything that moves." It was a game of cat and mouse, each side trying to outmaneuver the other in the labyrinth of rocks. The humans, though technologically superior, were hindered by the terrain. They couldn't fire their weapons with full accuracy, and that was exactly what Walter had hoped for. For the first time in the battle, the aliens had the upper hand. The humans were no longer in control. The Vanguard's firepower was powerful, but it couldn't be used to full effect in the maze of the asteroid field. The aliens moved faster, using the cover of the asteroids to strike from unexpected angles. The aliens launched surprise attacks, firing their weapons through the gaps in the asteroids, and for the first time, the human warship felt the sting of their counterattack. The Vanguard shook as an energy blast hit its side, a jolt that sent shockwaves through the ship. "Hull integrity at 87%, the damage control officer reported. "Shields holding steady, but we've taken some hits." Shaw's expression tightened as he glanced at the tactical display. The aliens were relentless, and they were getting bolder. They were taking advantage of the situation, using the field to ambush his fleet at every turn. "Increase power to the rear shields. Prepare to fall back," Shaw ordered. "We need to regroup. This is no longer a simple fight." The human warship began to pull back slightly, but Walter was ready. His fleet had drawn the humans into their trap, and now it was time to press the advantage. "Now," Walter muttered under his breath. "Now we finish this." The asteroid field was like a graveyard of space debris, a place where countless ships had met their end. Now it became the stage for the most intense battle the galaxy had ever seen. Commander Walter's heart raced as his fleet maneuvered between the floating rocks, using every piece of debris for cover. The human warship Vanguard was relentless, but the advantage had temporarily shifted to the aliens. It was a race to see who could outthink, outfight, and outlast the other in the unforgiving space between the stars. Walter's fingers tightened on the command console. The trap had worked, but it had come at a price. His fleet was battered and fragmented, and even though the humans were momentarily blinded by the field's chaos, they would soon adapt. The humans always adapted. "Commander, the Vanguard is pulling back. They're regrouping," Zira reported. Her voice carried a mix of relief and suspicion. "They know we have them in a vulnerable position." Walter's eyes narrowed. "Not for long," he muttered. The humans were already adapting. They were intelligent, resourceful, and fearless. But Walter had studied them. He knew their tactics. He had to use every trick in the book to force a decisive outcome. "We cannot let them recover," he ordered, voice low and commanding. "Push forward, hit them hard." The remaining ships in his fleet responded instantly, darting through the asteroids and breaking formation to launch a full-on assault on the Vanguard. A barrage of laser fire ripped through the space between them, creating blinding flashes of light that lit up the dark expanse like a series of tiny stars exploding. Meanwhile, on the Vanguard, Captain Shaw stood at the helm, his eyes locked onto the view screen. The asteroid field had turned into a battlefield of its own, one where the enemy could appear from anywhere, and every move could mean life or death. "They're closing in, Captain," one of his officers shouted, the tension rising in the air. "They're trying to overwhelm us." Shaw took a deep breath, the weight of command pressing down on him. It had been a long battle, and his ship's systems were starting to show signs of strain. The Vanguard was powerful, but it was not invulnerable. The damage from the earlier ambush had already left a mark, and now, facing multiple attacking ships in this dangerous environment, it was clear that this was going to be the final test. "We need to act fast," Shaw said, his voice calm but filled with resolve. "Get me a tactical read on their fleet. Scanners online. We're detecting enemy ships closing in from 3 directions. They've surrounded us, sir." A cold feeling ran down Shaw's spine. They had no more room to maneuver, not with the asteroids all around them. If they didn't act soon, they would be crushed. "Prepare to launch a counterattack," he ordered. "Focus everything we have on the lead alien ship. We break through their formation, or we don't get out of here." The officers worked quickly, adjusting the ship's systems, rerouting power to the weapons and shields. The Vanguard's engines roared back to life as Shaw's crew braced for the final confrontation. He had one shot, one opportunity to break the alien encirclement. "Fire!" Shaw shouted. The Vanguard unleashed its full arsenal, sending a concentrated stream of plasma and laser fire into the alien fleet. The barrage was precise, hitting the lead alien ship with devastating force. The explosion rocked the asteroid field, sending a shockwave of debris scattering in all directions. "Direct hit, Captain. The lead ship is down," one of the officers called out. But the victory was short-lived. The remaining alien ships moved like shadows, darting behind asteroids and coming at the Vanguard from unexpected angles. The Vanguard's shields flickered and groaned under the pressure as more blasts hammered against them. "Shields at 40%. The damage control officer reported. We can't take much more of this." Shaw's heart pounded in his chest, but his mind remained sharp. He knew that the aliens were not going to back down. They had no choice but to keep pressing, to continue fighting until one side finally emerged victorious. He couldn't let his crew down. He wouldn't let the Vanguard fall. "All crew members, brace for impact," Shaw ordered. "We're going to make a break for it. Fire on anything that moves." The Vanguard surged forward, engines burning hot as Shaw pushed the ship to its limits. With the aliens closing in from all sides, there was no more time for subtlety. It was now or never. Releasing all energy reserves to the forward shields, the officer shouted as the ship roared toward the thickest part of the asteroid field. The aliens, seeing the Vanguard make its move, adjusted their strategy. They knew that if the human warship broke free, it would be a massacre. The remaining ships launched a final, desperate assault, sending a barrage of energy beams directly at the Vanguard's exposed flank. In the blink of an eye, the Vanguard took another direct hit. The hull groaned in protest as the blast sent the warship veering off course. Sparks flew from the console as the crew struggled to keep the ship steady. "Damage to the engines. We're losing power," the officer yelled. Shaw's eyes widened as the ship veered dangerously close to a large asteroid. The Vanguard was crippled, and with no power, it was slowing down, unable to escape the asteroid's pull. "We're going to crash," Zira gasped. She looked up at Walter. "We have no other options." But Commander Walter didn't flinch. He knew the humans had one final card to play, perhaps their most dangerous. "Brace for impact," Walter said firmly. As the human warship drifted toward the asteroid field, its fate seemed sealed. But before it could make contact with the rock, something happened. The Vanguard executed a sharp turn, skimming the surface of a massive asteroid. The move was unexpected, so fast that even Walter's trained eyes couldn't keep up. The alien fleet was caught off guard, and in that split second, Shaw gave the order. "Fire everything." Now, the Vanguard released its remaining firepower with everything it had. The blasts shot out with pinpoint accuracy, hitting the remaining alien ships that had been too slow to react. One by one, they were taken down, their ships exploding into fiery wrecks. As the dust settled and the remnants of the alien fleet drifted silently in space, Shaw exhaled, his hands shaking with adrenaline. The Vanguard had emerged battered but intact. The aliens had been defeated, this time. But Walter was not done yet. His last surviving ship, barely functional, made a final charge. The alien commander's eyes blazed with the heat of failure, but he knew that the war for the galaxy was far from over. The battle in the asteroid field had been won, but a new chapter had only just begun.